I'm so jealous because you're wearing hoops and I normally always wear hoops, but because I'm moving, I have no idea where my jewelry is right now. And I was like, damn, but it's okay. At least we have them. Someone
They're
has.
here. The
Yeah.
hoops have presence in the space.
Welcome to Quantum Crossroads Science Spirit Society. I'm your host, Katie Dickinson. With a master's in biomedical engineering from Cornell University and certifications in holistic health coaching, NLP, Reiki, hypnotherapy, time techniques, life and group coaching, I'm here to share my journey as an innovative change agent. I'm also late diagnosed autistic with ADHD and PMDD, which adds a unique perspective to everything we discuss. In this podcast, we dive into the big questions and transformative conversations that challenge the way we see the world. We'll explore how our unique experiences shape our understanding of the universe and inspire us to create a more inclusive and conscious society. Get ready for a raw and real journey that will enlighten, inspire, and elevate your mind and spirit. Let's break down barriers and cross these quantum boundaries together. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Today, we have a truly special episode for you. We're diving deep into the realms of spirituality, art, and collective liberation with the incredible Raven Royce. Raven is a visionary artist, singer, and ceremonialist who uses her unique talents to bridge gaps between science, spirit, and society. In this episode, Raven shares her profound insights on the power of feeling, the importance of interdependence, and how art can be a catalyst for social change. We'll explore how our unique experiences shape our understanding of the universe and inspire us to create a more inclusive and conscious society. Let's go.
I'm like trying to merge the realms of spirituality and science. And then it's like, it's evolving from there because originally what was happening is I started creating a school called Starlight Synergy School, which is where I was going to take the people and like the geniuses that I've met who have helped me on my healing journey, bring them all together I can't stand the competitiveness of the coaching industry. I think it's so stupid that people don't work together. It reminds me a lot of the scientific community because I'm a
Mm.
scientist by trade, and like how we don't share information and how we don't share science throughout the world. It's like we're halting ourselves from growth constantly. So I wanted to create a space that allowed people to have somewhere to go to witness multiple healing modalities so that
Yeah.
they can pick which one works best for them instead of spending thousands of dollars on each individual healing modality. And then once I started getting more invested in recognizing what was going on in the world, I needed to put a halt to it because DEI was already important for me for Starlight Synergy School. Like it's one of the main values of it. And I just recognized that immediately no one in the coaching industry was talking about what was going on in Palestine. And
Yeah.
no one would even respond to me about it. And I just was like, I can't launch this school and feel confident in the people that I have in this school or part of this school when this is not part of this. Like we need collective conscious healing and this is not what's happening. And there's this kind of like mindset in the manifestation world that I've seen that is, we don't want to manifest this into our own reality. So we're going to ignore everything going on in the world, yet bring only my shit to the surface. And it's that in itself is lack mentality and creating like the limiting factor of us being able to raise as a collective. That's why like I rebranded my podcast now, and it's more about creating these conversations of intersectionality and figuring out like where do we go from here based on multiple different people's backgrounds.
Love that so much. That's such important work. You're a weaver, somebody who understands like the intersectionality and the cross interfacing of everything. So I love that. It's
That's
an
what I
important.
noticed. The biggest part was like when I came across your page on Instagram, you had this post where you were speaking directly to your Jewish friends. And it was so like, it made me cry because it is exactly how I have always felt. But for you to be able to articulate it in the way that you do is so important because you come from such a loving place. Like you have such a way of creating something so polarizing to become a conversation. And I think that is the most important thing that we need in this world right now.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you for saying that. I feel like to be able to hold that perspective that there is a gift in the darkness, that there's a gift in polarity is a fundamental way of seeing the world that I don't think everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of us, like myself, were born with that. Like I had that sense since I was a child, since as long as I can remember that there is good in everything and everyone, and we can find it together. Like we can find it together. So that's my attitude in general in approaching life and problems and even complex situations like genocide. Genocide is not complex, but like the complexity associated with witnessing it, participating in it, enabling it, and all of that. I'm excited to talk about, dive in deeper with all of this with you.
So one of the things that you just said, I was like, it was so cool because you're like, this is just how I've always been my whole life, like you, since you can remember. And that is exactly how I have felt. And I think that's why your post resonates so much with me because I'm like, I don't know anyone else who talks like this or thinks like this or sees like this. And even I remember during the last election, I would post things asking these questions. And I remember this woman, I wish I could find the post. I remember this woman responded and she was like, then explain it to us, Katie. Explain to us like how things could be if like they don't have to be this way. And it was just so shocking to me that other people just don't think like that naturally. It's so hard for me to understand that.
Yeah. Which is in and of itself a spiritual challenge. And I understand the consciousness that's different from mine.
Yeah.
And as people who perceive ourselves as having an awareness of what's important or what's really truly good, if we feel like an ethical, moral duty to help the world, then we have to start by putting ourselves in that position of, can I understand that other people don't recognize this? Can I understand that people that I love, maybe even admire, maybe even at some point respected or followed in some way, are not sharing this awareness with me? And I see that not as a bad thing. How can I see that as an opportunity for me to evolve in my spiritual maturity and leadership and develop the skills that are needed to bridge those gaps?
That is so important. I think because personally, it reminds me of like how I've felt in the scientific community, even and how I have felt even like fighting for social justice is that most of my life, I have felt like the dumb person or the person that doesn't understand things just because I understand them differently. So I always feel like I'm trying to prove myself to people, which is you just need to understand this or this, as though it's something they already have inside them I don't realize. And so instead of coming at it from an understanding point of view, like you're talking about, it's like a fighting point of view that's just hear me out, just hear, and it doesn't work. It's like you're speaking a different language and they don't know how to accept it because that's not the reality of the situation. And like you said, being able to step into a leadership role and see yourself in that is important because otherwise then you're just coming from another victim-like mentality as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you're perpetuating more of the fight by separating us and them. These are all the spiritual influencers that are talking about genocide, and here are all the ones who aren't. So these people are integrity and these people aren't. How is that helping anything at all? Hello? To me, that's pointless. To me, what that shows to me is we need to start to understand how to deal with our emotions and our passion and our fire and our fight for revolution and liberation and freedom for people. If that's being awakened in some of our hearts to a degree where we're finding our whole lives shifting to now put social justice on the forefront of our pages and our brands and our livelihoods for sacrificing relationships. There's frontliners. That's what I call them in my mind, right? Frontliners, we're responsible for being at the front of the line, not turning around and yelling at people who aren't walking up in the second and third and fourth lines, right? We're responsible for demonstrating liberation in action. That's it. And some of us are more equipped than others to have the more grounded, calmer, let's say, conversations around why is this happening? Let's challenge your bias. Let's look at a new perspective. Not everyone is equipped with the natural personality or communication skills to do that. And that's okay. For myself, I was a pacifist as a child and very much grew up in an emotional environment where I repressed and maintained a lot of my anger and sadness to just keep the peace. Getting older, finding that passion and fire for my own personal injustices or my own personal causes, as it were. That's a process we all go through. We figure out what we care about, or we just subconsciously follow patterns until we one day stumble upon something that opens our eyes to what we care about. Maybe that's most people's journey to some degree. Yeah. And then we reach that point in our evolution or our growth where the light turns on or the fire turns up, or we have enough space to then expand our awareness and really see, okay, I'm an adult now in a world that there's a lot of suffering in, and I have choice. Like, I have choice in how I move in this world. I have choice in how much I let myself feel, and I have choice about how I express those feelings. So when it comes to feeling passionate about something and wanting other people to get on board, we have to remember that passion elementally is fire, and fire burns. And it takes a skilled person to wield their fire in a way that can warm and invite people to gather around with you, rather than holding a torch ablaze and waving it in people's faces and screaming at them to wake up. That will work for some people, but not for most people. And I think we're at a part of the journey now where if we look at Palestine, it's already been 9 months, almost 10 months. Like, it's been going on for many years. And now more of us are awakening to the poly crisis, as my friend Brianna calls it. And that term refers to the fact that we are in a lifelong journey of liberation. And the more of us that we can gather together around that fire, the more sustainable and effective all of our actions will be towards that common vision.
Damn. I didn't realize how emotional I was going to get during this conversation.
Thinking about what's coming up for you right now.
Oh my God, I'm literally like going to start crying.
Let it out.
I realize I'm on the precipice of figuring out how to not burn people. And so for you to explain it in such a beautiful way like that, it just gives the perfect visualization of how that fire can be a positive thing instead of a negative thing. Because that's what I've been used to my whole life, is that's a negative thing. And so it's really cool to think of it in that way and how that can change things.
Something within that too, that I would love for us to think about is, like, when you think about that fire and you think about what you care about, and just humans, like what we generally care about as humans, we care about our safety, we care about each other, right? We care about nature. We care about where our food comes from. We care about our water. Those are natural, biological, like innate human impulses to care about ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And so obviously, as we've evolved and become so intelligent, like, our minds can explore infinite possibilities of this realm. And therefore, a lot of us start to lose that connection with what we truly care about. But it's very natural for us to stand for what we care about. It's very inherent for us to protect water, land, the quality of our air, each other's hearts. These are natural human qualities. They've just become filtered, distorted, and disconnected from us because our intelligence and our minds have grown so much. Mm-hmm. So intelligence is not a bad thing. Knowing a lot of information isn't a bad thing. But I personally believe the only way we're going to be able to tend those fires well and to gather people is just to return to the natural essence of what beats in our heart every day. Food, love, water, shelter. That's it. That's it. And spirit, God, source, the essence of the non-physical that is tending to and breathing all of this represents that web, right? Represents that exchange of information, the smoke from the fire that you can smell as you're driving on the highway, like a few miles down from the campsite. We're all always in proximity to somebody who has a fire burning for life. Mm. And if you're not that person yet, find those people, go be around them, observe their warmth. Like, you're really good at this, Katie. You're like, I'm gathering people around me who are tending their fire well, because I want to learn how to tend my fire, right?
Yeah.
Can do that, especially for those of us who are women embodied, who are more feminine in our nature. That's even more so an invitation for us to release any shame or guilt around feeling angry or feeling grief or feeling anything at all. To just remember that's our superpower, period. Feeling is our superpower. Feeling lives in the body, and our body is always aligning us with love. It's always doing its very best. Granted that we up here are aligning ourselves with love.
Yeah.
And we're on the right track if we start there. And if we just nurture ourselves and take care to truly, intentionally not want to cause harm. We need to care about each other's lives and the sacred gift that life is in and of itself. I think that is the fundamental belief that would shift everything for a lot of people if they really connected to how much they care about life, including their own.
I think that is so huge. It reminds me of like people who will say, oh, this is the work version of me and this is the real version of me. And I've never understood that. Like the first thing I did when I made my first resume was made it purple, green, and orange. And I was just like, and my parents are like, you're never going to get a job that way. And I'm like, then I don't want the job. Like I've never understood the people who are like, these are the two different versions of me. I'm like, how are we creating a world if there's a work version of you? It's the intelligence. It's separating the intelligence from the emotion, just like you were talking about. Can you share a little bit about your journey and what led you to become a visionary artist, singer, and ceremonialist?
Most definitely. Like you said, Katie, I always had this inherent sense of being a creator and knowing that I didn't have to necessarily do what I was being told, right? But when you're a kid, you learn to obey. I was thinking about this on my walk today. When we're a kid brought up in the system, who is the main antagonist in our story today, we learn to obey because obedience gets you the results that you need to have the security that we all desire. And that's per North American growing up. So my story is I was born in the Philippines, which is where my mother's family is from. She's mixed Filipina, Spanish, and Swiss. My father was born in Lebanon. His mom is from Palestine, from Haifa, had to leave there in 1948 as per the Nakba and the ongoing oppression of the Palestinian people. And so I grew up in Canada. I'm a first generation Canadian immigrant. I grew up on the unceded Tsleil-Waututh, Coast Salish, and Musqueam territories, and the Squamish Nation as well. I've been all around that region. And so to be a person who can even name the indigenous peoples of the land, I wasn't that person 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I'm going to be 32 this year. So there's a lot for me that has happened over the last decade that's really helped me honor that sense of free-spirited, rebellious, creative energy that I've always had, and to learn to walk in a world where we are all affected by that system in different ways. So I find myself a person of nuance and subtlety. I'm really interested in the in-betweens and the unsaid and the unseen. My gift is in the word, and it's in translating all of that unseen material into sound, texture, color, art, design. I'm a painter, poet, writer, photographer, designer, illustrator. I can build things. I'm a great cook. I can make. I'm a maker. That's my nature. So I've never felt limited in my options in life, in a sense, because I'm like, I could sit here with a stick and a rock and be happy. I could sit here with one. I always thought to myself, I could have one ballpoint pen and a paper napkin and I'll be totally fine. So I was always able to entertain myself and be stimulated by the inner world. But of course, when you're deeply connected to the inner world, you also can feel everybody else's inner world. And you can see that there's a lot of shadow in that inner world that manifests in violence, pain, fear. And I was very much not about violence, not about anything gory, didn't like anything at all. Like I was very upset by anything violent or death related when I was a child. anything cruel, anything like I just couldn't do it. And then actually, as I got into my teen years and I guess my hormones started going on and my brain started maturing and exploring, I became rabid to understand the shadow side of life. I'm like, I'm never going to live there. That's not me, who I am as a person. I grew up in a very like safe, stable Catholic home, mom and dad and a brother, and it was very secure. So I had that mental, emotional security for the most part growing up. But there was this sense of, okay, safely from my yard, what can the internet show me? What can books show me? What can films show me? Reveal to me the horrors of the world. That was my inner cry. I want to know. And I would watch things like this, hiding under blankets. I would read things and I just wanted to understand, what is this full spectrum? Because there's these feelings in me, there's desire in me, there's curiosity. And when I got older, I started to understand that the nature of being curious is in and of itself a rebellious act in a system that wants everybody to conform. Okay. So it's
to know that when kids ask too many questions, it's like too many questions. No, kids should ask a lot of questions.
And be curious. I was curious about sex. I was curious about death. I was curious about my body. I was curious about nature, animals, biology. I wanted to understand the world. Like, where am I? And because our parents each paint a different picture of what the world is to us, we, of course, grow up with completely different understandings of how reality works. Some of us eventually find each other, find commonalities. We form belief systems. We join religions. We have groups of people who share common views of the world. And that's how we then proceed to create our lives for the most part. So to me, I think being an observer, being a listener, and being someone who deals with the unseen has given me a unique vantage point and allowed me to then apply my fire and what I care about to where I see that I can have the most impact. As somebody who's always maintained their creative power, as somebody who's always maintained their joy and their belief in life, I understand that these are gifts. It's gifts to have the kind of faith that I have in a world that feels so cruel. And I don't take that gift for granted, but I also understand that it's not for me to force upon anyone. It's everybody's choice to open to that reality. And we can all work together to bridge those gaps between each other's realities and find that common heartbeat that we share: food, love, water, shelter. That's it. So that's a little bit of my story, I guess, more from a philosophical standpoint, or just a context of understanding like how I see the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love to sing. And singing in ceremony, especially working with plant medicine and any really type of transformative experience. I've been on so many different kind of stages, leading all kinds of circles, bringing all kinds of people together. And the common heartbeat, again, is togetherness itself. And can we face the dark stuff together with joy, with light, with humor, with play, not shy away from any of it, address it all, bring it to the fire, and offer it up to prayer? Because let's be real, this whole thing is bigger than any of us.
Yeah, you can really feel that in your song Roots. I was listening to it on repeat before our call today, and I was just like laying in bed listening to it, and I could just feel it in my heart. And it's like, you can, okay, this is going to sound so weird. This is my autistic brain though, but like the feeling it made me feel was, have you ever seen the movie A Little Princess?
Of course.
So you know the song they sang at the beginning and the end? I meant to look it up to have it prepared for this, because I don't even know what the words are in that song, but I just know that every time I watch that movie, that song just makes me cry so hard. And it makes me just feel this like belief in the world. And that same feeling is exactly how I felt when I was listening to your song. And I was like, oh, wow, this is bringing the nostalgia out of me that I've never connected with before.
Oh, that touches my heart so much to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm addicted to that song already. I could tell, like, it's really hard for me to start liking new music. And the second I listened to it, I was like, oh, this is so good.
I can't wait for you to hear the whole album, which is fun.
When is that coming out?
So that's going to come out. I have my goal of by my birthday this year, which is October 16th.
Okay.
So that's official to the world. That's my goal. I've spent too many years strategizing about everything in my life, and now I'm just going to go with what feels yummy.
Just go with it.
Yeah. And I'm excited because truly music, and again, and why I chose to focus on that in these last few years is because I feel that's the singular, most impactful, all-in-one transmission of my energy that I can deliver.
Yeah.
You get to hear me, you get to feel me. If you see me perform, you get to witness and maybe even smell me if you're lucky. That full sensory experience, that's what makes me come alive and feel like I've done something worthwhile for the world. So in the context of Palestine as well, in January, I was praying. I was just like, God, I don't know why I'm doing this right now. Because all of my previous reasons, while still noble and honorable, like I want to bring light to the world, I want to unite people, I want to awaken consciousness, like these are all very broad concepts, right? Now it's, I want to be a voice for collective liberation and stand for the roots of humanity and life and venerate life. That's who I am. That all became clear as a result of my eyes being opened to Palestine. And as of that, me connecting that and being like, God, please help me. And then God was like, cool, here's a concert you can produce and perform at. Here's a fundraiser you can join. Here's your best friend who's leading a mystery school that you can come in and co-teach at. Like doors started opening for me to align that prayer. And so I just want to invite you and anyone who's hearing and receiving this to just pray, like, God, please align my art and my impact, or please align my business and my impact. Please align my family with collective liberation. Whatever it is, just ask for that bridge to be made, and you will find the people who can help make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so important. I've been an artist my whole life, but I think that through my 20s, I was a hairstylist. And then I went back to university at 28 years old. And that's when I got my master's in biomedical engineering. And I think that at that point in my life, I was just like, I have to prove to the world. I went to an Ivy League school just to prove to people I could do it. And then immediately afterwards, fuck, I miss art. But in science, I find my creativity as well, which is why merging, it's so funny to me when people don't realize that science is actually creativity, because if you allow people to actually do science in not a confined way, that is how we actually invent new things. But that's for another day. Who has been your greatest inspiration through your journey?
What a question. There's definitely no one person who has been my greatest inspiration. I feel like I'm inspired by the bravery of anybody I see who speaks up from their heart about what they believe in. And that includes my friends when they set a boundary at the brunch table. And that includes leaders in the community who are fiercely advocating for Palestine. And that includes artists like Michael Jackson, whose entire lives were dedicated to bringing this radiant love through the arts. So I see inspiration literally as being breathed by, being inspired, having the breath come into you.
Yeah.
And I live in a state of inspiration. And that means that everybody around me is my teacher, which I think is the most fun and awesome way to live.
Yeah. When you come from that kind of mindset, it's funny because I think that in my route of going back to university at 28 and then moving so quickly in that part of my life made me a product of the production cycle of capitalism, right? To be as productive as humanly fucking possible. And I was really fucking good at it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now since I've been laid off, and also since trying to build my business, right now, financially, I'm probably in one of the most unstable places I've ever been in my life. Yet I have never felt more peace and happiness and joy experiencing life as it comes. And really, and it's funny because I've always felt that way. I'm always I want to help people and I want to do these things, but I always came at it from the mindset of, when I get to this place, I'll be able to do everything I can to help others. And that also means avoiding everyone in the world until I get there. And I'm like, that's not how it fucking works. I can just lock myself in my house for 10 years and be like, all right, guys, I'm ready to care about you now. It's not.
Girl, I'm so glad you brought that forward. Like louder for the people at the back. You do not need to wait for anything. No amount of resources, no achievement, no credit, nothing. You don't need validation from anyone or anything to be a leader.
Yeah.
You just don't. You don't need it to build community. You don't need validation to do spiritual work. You don't need validation to change.
Oh, that's such a big one. I gave a talk at a women's group that we have here in St. Pete 2 weeks ago. And that was one of my biggest things, specifically when it comes to like self-healing and stuff like that. And I'm like, because a lot of the work that I talk about is how to advocate for yourself, especially as someone who's disabled. And I just like teaching people how to advocate for themselves, but also how teaching people how to advocate for others helps build the entire community. And a huge part of that is making sure that your nervous system is stabilized so that you can handle what's going on in your life. And so it was funny because they were like, how are you going to connect this to entrepreneurship? And I'm like, if you're an entrepreneur, your entire business is you have to like take care of yourself. But one of the biggest things is that I think people just take spirituality and healing and self-work or personal development so fucking seriously. It drives me nuts. Like they're like, it has to be perfect. I need to learn how to do all these things. I need to pay all this money. And it's one of the biggest things I just tell people is if you're feeling emotions, just start tapping on your body. I don't care. Like with EFT, like you don't need to know how to do things perfectly. Your intention for how you're loving yourself is the most important thing out of everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's where it's like the fundamental difference in mentality of being a creator or being controlled. You're either in your creator mode or you're being controlled, and you're allowing something else to control you, a set of beliefs, one thought that's running in your subconscious. It's all thoughts, right? Like whatever we believe is what our reality is. And so if you're watching your dominant reality be one where you can't be yourself, you can't have the impact you want, you can't speak up, you're letting yourself be controlled, period. And there's nothing bad about that unless it's making you feel bad. You know, you're feeling bad and you're feeling uncomfortable or like you're not enough, or that there's something in your life that's not aligning with what you truly desire, what in the world around you. You just need to shift into your creator mindset and shift back into your body, like you're saying, back into right here. There's no name for being in the body. It's just being in the body, right? The technique that you need.
Yeah.
It's just a choice. And so those of us who have that awareness of being creators and being able to change our minds, right?
That's I think one of the biggest problems we have going on in this world today is the fear of changing your mind, the fear of the repercussions of changing your mind, what that means if you change your mind, because it's like you're a liar, you're two-faced, and it's, oh my God, the freedom to be able to change your mind at any given moment is so fucking beautiful.
It is. And it's also a pillar of integrity, actually. I meet a lot of people who talk to me about integrity and how integrity for a lot of folks means keeping your word, like being who you said you were, who you said you were when, like you're changing and updating. So integrity is really about being able to maintain and update your agreements with yourself and with others as they change. That's all it is. And so at any point, you're able to rewrite the contracts that you have in any area of your life. But a lot of people don't realize the authority that they have to actually make those changes. And so they say, oh, I can't because I already signed this, or I can't because we agreed to this then, or I can't because that's not what these people are doing. You can. You just have to be willing to communicate that change and update your agreements with yourself and with others so that you can move in the way that you want. That's it. And that's how we don't harm people, is by not passively holding our emotions and our feelings, because the only reason we want to change is because we feel uncomfortable, right? So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're like, I really haven't been doing this thing that I feel like I should be doing or I want to be doing, but I can't because of this thought, it's just take a breath with that. Be with the fact that you can even recognize that there's a change that you want to make.
That part.
Right. And then Understand that your body, whether you like it or not, will continue to signal you to make that change until you surrender that piece in your mind. Some people are stubborn AF and they never do. And you can build yourself a very rigid, safe, secure box of who you are and what reality is. But the sacrifice is that you will feel uncomfortable a lot, and there won't be anything, and you will feel powerless to do anything about your discomfort. And you will spend a lot of your life feeling like you are fighting against forces that you can't control. Living in that sense of fighting is exhausting. We cannot create leadership from that place. So you have to be willing to change your mind. You have to be willing to put the fight down. Put the fight down and surrender and say, this no longer feels good for me. And I would rather go through the discomfort of changing it, which is temporary, and the discomfort of keeping it in, which is eternal and horrible and multidimensional. So the choice is always ours.
Yeah. I think that's been the... I'm sorry, what was that last part you said?
Just bring it back. Like, are you going to be a creator or are you going to let yourself be controlled?
Yeah. I think that has been, when I look back at the journey that I've been on this past year, and I look at what the overarching theme has been, it 100% has been, I didn't know I was allowed to do that. And it seems so stupid to me because I think a lot of people look at me and they're like, you've always been a free spirit. You've always been outspoken and you've always been this way. Where in my mind, I'm like, this is the caged version of me. This is the part that you think I'm this way, or like people will say, I wish I could be like that or something. And I'm like, they don't even realize this is the painful part for me. Like, for me to see what is available for what I want and what I believe in is so much different. It's so much more expansive. It's so much more out there because I have been this like already out there person my whole life. But it's funny because I think that because that image has been also bestowed upon me as like the disruptor or whatever, then I just accepted that I'm like, oh, I'm just like the height of what that means. And so this whole past year has been even deconstructing that and being like, oh no, it's so much more. And there's so much more you're allowed to do.
Yeah, that's in your nature. It's in your nature to be curious and to go against the grain and to seek out new and creative ways of doing things. And you for yourself get to enjoy the journey of being that disruptor to whatever degree that you want and feels true for you in whatever choice you're making.
Yeah. I hate the word disruptor though. Well, I feel like my relationship with it now is like my relationship used to be with the word resilience, because it drove me nuts. People will constantly through my life, they would be like, you're so resilient, you'll get through this. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. And now people want to constantly call me a disruptor. And I'm like, I don't like the negative connotation that comes with this disruption. So I've been calling myself an innovative change agent instead, because I'm like, the second you tell someone you're a disruptor, they're like, oh, you're going to be a problem. And it's no, this is the solution.
I hear that. And I would invite you to embrace being the problem.
That's true too.
That's really where it's at. I think that's where that missing piece for a lot of people is in the confidence, is they're just not willing to fully own the archetype in its fullest of what it is to be a leader and a creator. We are disruptors. We are rebels. We are revolutionaries. We do trigger people. We are shadow walkers. We do press buttons. None of these are bad things. And I want to shout that from the rooftops for anybody who is quelling their creative genius, their expression, their wildness, their weirdness, their expansiveness. If you're like, you haven't even seen anything yet, like, I want to give you permission to allow that disruptor to be that lever and to sit on that and be like, yeah, I'm this and I'm this. Yeah, I'm this and I'm this. Like, the mirrors in your life are always giving you gifts. They're always giving you gifts. It's up to you to receive and interpret whatever, but rejecting anything, any interpretation of us gives it power. If someone comes at me and says to me, you're evil, I'm like, yeah, I am evil. And I'm also the most joyful, loving, rooted, grounded, caring, evil person you've ever met. Like, it takes the power away completely. Because the truth is in my being. You can feel it, you can see it. If you're innovating change and you're doing that by being a disruption in some people's patterns, celebrate that about yourself. It's important and it's needed. And that's the spirit of Roots. And that's the spirit of all my music, is that you absolutely must embrace the dark and the ugly inside of you to the degree that you can hold it like a precious child in your arm as you step forward with the sword of your truth and light and say, I receive this and I'm going to carry this with me as I continue to care for you, humanity.
God, I fucking love you. I listen to you talk all fucking day. You're like getting me so hyped up right now. I'm like, yes, fuck yes, let's go.
Great. That's what I want. And that's what I'm here to bring. You mentioned earlier, Katie, seriousness and like having this degree of seriousness. I really had to work through this one. Serious Sally over here. For most of my life, I could not crack a smile. Like, people were always like, hello, are you happy? Are you alive in there? And I'm like, I'm feeling the weight of the world, my friends.
Yeah.
I'm in here. It's somber in here. There's a lot going on in here. Not a lot to be truly joyful about. But it was only in starting to really accept all that dark intensity, right? The shadow of life that I can feel inside me and its presence in the world, to accept that, love that, be in forgiveness and rapport with that. And then to start to allow myself to explore, okay, who is this? Who is this person in here? Life is a journey of self-discovery. Liberation is a journey of self-discovery. Collective liberation is a journey of self-discovery. We're discovering our fire. We're discovering our power, discovering our values and our humanity. And if we're really focused on it, we're discovering our purpose and our reason for being here.
Yeah.
It's a nameless thing. And you'll know it when you're living it and you're in it and you're feeling it. And it's moment to moment that sense of purpose is available to us. There's no one purpose for anybody. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
One purpose. Although you can say our purpose is to love, our purpose is to, our purpose is just to simply to be. These are all just opinions and ideas. Only you know what fills you truly with a sense of purpose and what the word purpose even means to you. So again, I come from a perspective where it is not my business to be in your business. It's my business to share my experience. It's in my business to offer invitations. It's in my business to ask questions. And it's in my business to make suggestions. That's my business. And that's feminine leadership, truly. It's a way of seducing people into their own understanding and realizations, without projecting on them any sense of this is a piece of knowledge that you don't have.
That's such a huge, so like the way that I do coaching is specific to helping people recognize that they have all of the answers within them. And I'm just like a guide or a vessel to help you get to the answer you want. I'm not here to tell you what to do or anything like that. And so that's so strong. Like, to not be a person that acts like I have something you don't have. I can't stand that shit.
No, and yet we're all in this conversation of the coaching industry and the spiritual influencer community, the context of collective liberation. There's been a lot of that judgy, you're not doing this energy in that space.
And I am guilty, very fucking guilty of this in my head.
And yeah, another way of looking at it is that we've all experienced that at some point. I myself have also experienced myself judging other people for what they're saying or not saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm feeling those contractive feelings, that's a sign for me that I need to go in and explore what the heck is going on in here.
Yeah.
Because you can't be effective in a state of judgment. We are not effective leaders when we're judging others.
And so this actually brings me to a really big point in something I wanted to talk about is like recently for me, what has come up is that for months I was like being a spectator of what was going on in the world and trying to push things out and like being that judgmental person, being like, listen to me. And then I recognized last week, it got me into such a dark place. It reminded me of like where I was last election and like I go into a very dark place. And I was like, I can't fucking do this because for me, I am more capable of creating change at more of a local level. Like it's better for me to be in person, to create community and to do all these things. But then there's that aspect where the mirrors we talk about, right? Where it's like, I'm the one sitting out here posting, haven't heard anybody from the spiritual community talk about Palestine or anything. And yet I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is fucking killing me. I need to do something that's creating real change, not just bickering with fucking people online. But it's like that fear of being judged for someone who's not doing enough on the online lens.
Which is ironic because that's just the snake eating its own tail, right? You're judging yourself for not doing enough. So you're judging other people for not doing enough. They're judging you for judging them. It's like a whole thing. Just what if we just step out of that cycle entirely and just like, it's not my business what anybody else is doing. Period. It is my business to redirect my feelings of judgment, discomfort, guilt, and shame into creative action towards what I care about. That is my business, period. So if I have to go process my deep darkness, if I need to go seek support, if I need to try some modalities I've never tried, if I need to do something different to deal with the new level of feelings that I'm having, which are distinctly uncomfortable for me at this point in my life, then I need to do that. That's my responsibility. We need to be tending to our fire and our water.
Yeah.
We need to tend to our emotions, tend to our passion, tend to our bodies. Step one in literally any state of contraction. And then when you're coming into leadership, leading with your heart, if you're really here for collective liberation, then there is no fear of judgment on that path. It's the antithesis to judgment is liberation. Judgment is saying you can and you can't. You are and you aren't. Liberation is we all are. We are. Liberation is togetherness. And it's also about allowing friction. It's about allowing disruption. It's about allowing change. And the more in our own personal lives that we have the capacity, like you were saying, to hold that, let it move through us, feel it, cry it, sing it, yell it, beat a pillow of it with it, paint it, do things in non-harmful ways to be at one with those vibrations, then we can be effective. Then we can choose to enter the arena of social media, right? But the point is, anytime that you find your mind going to, oh, but she's still silent. Oh, I'm doing it, but they're not. Just look at, how does that make you feel? That makes me sad, right? So then, okay, so I'm sad. Why am I sad? Because I want more people to gather around this fire with me. Great. How do I tend the fire and invite people in a playful, seductive, bridge building way to gather around that fire with me? That's the whole conversation. Tend to your emotions, retract your judgment from others, focus on what you're doing to create liberation in your own life, and then act with intention, disregard what anybody else is doing. Because the nature of this reality is vibrational. We're attracted to each other like magnets, right? Even moths are drawn to a flame, right? So people will notice, people will gather, we will see this change. Spiritual leaders and influencers who aren't speaking up may in the future about something else that they care about. Maybe they won't. Guess what? It doesn't matter. We are spirit and we are influencing each other constantly. We are all spiritual influencers. Okay. So just inviting us all to take off our coach hats, take off our social media manager hats, take off our algorithmic hats, take off our capitalist hats, just take it all off until we're naked with the truth of what we feel in the moment. And we're consciously choosing where and how we want to express that in a way that can build that bridge and keep that fire warm and safe for even children, right? Safe for even children to gather around. That means boundaries, right? That means, hey, if you're attacking me, if you're being rude to me, if you're defaming me, if you're shaming me, then you get to stand over here, right? That might look like a block, a mute, an ignore, right? A change in an agreement in a relationship. You as a fire tender also have the responsibility, not just to make sure it's burning, but to keep those at a safe distance, right? It's not about keeping people out or blocking people. It's about making sure everyone is assigned a safe distance from your fire. And the only way you can do that is by showing people the fire and letting people see it and be like, this is hot. I'm mad. I'm upset about the world. I'm pissed off. I wish more people were talking about this. So I'm going to talk about it. Here's what I'm feeling. This is what my fire looks like. And once you let that fire burn in that healthy way, you come out of that attack frequency, you come off that front line, right? You come back into it. Then eventually the fire chills out. You're sitting back in your earth again. You can share your story. When I was young, this is what I experienced. This is why I think this way. And then share from your water. I really feel so sad when I see and hear these things. My grief is like so big, I can't contain it. This is art. This is what artists do. We're out here sharing our fire, our water, our earth, and then our air, our dreams, our prayers, our made up words, our spells, our affirmations, our poetry, right? So I'm a big elemental person. Like I really see myself through these elements, and I find them really helpful for conversations around communication skills, relating, leadership.
The name of the first program of Starlight Synergy School is Elemental Empowerment. And it's supposed to go through all the different elements and how to use the elements in those ways. So I fucking love everything you're talking about.
Perfect. I love that.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting to explore their spiritual and artistic and self-liberation sides?
Connect with your body and get to know your emotions. Create a safe space for you to do those two things every single day. And that will set you up for the lifestyle of an integrated spiritual journey. One where you're not neglecting your physical needs or your social or communal needs, but you're able to expand your consciousness and try new things in your art without losing yourself or losing your sense of the basic heartbeats of a good life, of a life that is fulfilling and filled with spirit and nature and art and all those things and liberation. So start with your emotions and your body, create a safe space to do that every day and let your life unfold from that grounded place.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
A big thing that I wanted to talk about when you and I first connected was this idea of collective conscious healing and what that looks like. And my idea was like, how do we, because when it comes to us individually, we go to shadow work, right? We go to those dark places in ourselves. So I don't know that there's a specific answer here, but this is a conversation that I want to have with as many people as I possibly can and ask them. And so I'm asking you, what do you think shadow work on the collective level might look like?
I think the only shadow work that is ever truly done is within oneself.
Mm-hmm.
And that the nature of the collective shadow is a reflection of forces that are greater than any one or even group of us could address. I think you can address the collective shadow, like you can look at your own pain and see, oh yes, this is a reflection of the collective's pain. But I personally have a hard time with even separating the two. I think that there's just some feelings that are really big that people don't know how to hold. And they're like, this has got to be a collective shadow thing. Mm-hmm. I can't possibly feel this much grief and rage. I can't possibly have this deep, dark violence inside of me. I can't possibly want to control and enslave other people. That can't be me. No way. That's a collective shadow thing. We're processing the collective. I think it's bullshit personally. I really do. I think that human nature is to accept human nature and to live human nature and to choose, right? Our human nature is to choose our nature. Does that make sense? We are all built with this full spectrum of potential to be completely haywire, evil, serial killer, terrible type, whatever people we want to call them or label them. And we can also be saints and holy people and angels on earth and blah, 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 blah. But all of those things are still just ideals, extremes, and identities. True human nature is simply about feeling that full spectrum of emotions and then what you choose to do with them. And if you look at the collective, that's made up of billions and billions of people feeling their full spectrum of emotions and then choosing what they're going to do with them. So how can I change the collective in any other way than feeling my full spectrum of emotions and choosing what to do with them? Let's not make it so complicated.
Yeah.
We are light and we are darkness. We have it all inside us. We're all capable of everything to the degree that our body and our soul has been created to do so. What are you going to choose to do with that? And I think the collective shifts as a byproduct of those individual choices. And that there's also a big hand that nature and God itself play in this. I think that the most woo thing I would say around this is that I think the plants are orchestrating a lot of this. You know, the consciousness of mushrooms, the consciousness of plants like ayahuasca, the consciousness of these master plant teachers, these medicines I've seen through my own life and the way that it's rippled out in me, that people do wake up to shared experiences of empathy and togetherness and liberation and purpose. We do wake up to understanding all of a sudden, like the water is sacred, water is life. Like I've watched people come and arrive into these places of consciousness naturally through each individually making choices that have aligned them with the frequency of that. So the collective itself is being carried by a wave that we don't need to force or manipulate in any way. And I think personally that it is a waste of one's time and energy to focus on healing the collective anything. Never said that before, but it feels really true. And it like takes a load off too, because it's like, how can you put so much power and responsibility on yourself to heal the world if you yourself are avoiding and the acceptance and acknowledgement of the world that is within you? Like, why are we so afraid to name that we carry and can feel and access these darker emotions? And yeah, go ahead.
No, because we don't have enough time to get into it.
I know.
So
sorry to answer shorter.
No, it's okay because I'm actually glad, because then I'm going to have to step away and think about what you said. And then we can have another conversation, because I think this is a way bigger conversation. I'm so excited to continue on, which will make this a cliffhanger episode. But I just want to make sure that you get to plug all of your things, like where listeners can find you online, anything that you have coming up. I know you have something coming up on the 12th. And if you have a final message or final thoughts for everybody today.
Wonderful. Thank you for this just beautiful conversation, Katie. I'm excited to unpack more of even my own thoughts and feelings around collective shadow work. And all of that was brand new for me to really hear from myself. So excited for that. And I'll be hosting the Art for Palestine telethon, mini telethon community gathering online Friday, July 12th at 7 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. Pacific. And you can find that on the Art for Palestine campaign website, Instagram. I myself am on Instagram still for the time being, raven.royce. But the main hub for all of my things is ravenroyce.com. So in the event that Meta goes down or I'm blocked or whatever, there's a mailing list on there. You can drop it in. I'll make sure that we're in touch. No plugs other than that, my love. I'm just grateful to be able to share my voice. I really hope that these words and this conversation spark something in everyone today, and that you're inspired to tend to your fire and maybe just to look at some things a little differently than you have in the past. By no means do I desire anybody to ascribe to anything that I say unless it truly resonates. And I'm in a constant exploration and study of life myself. So continually growing and learning, here for the process and here for the mystery. So sending love to you, Katie, and to all of you who are watching.
Thank you. I know that my heart is coming away from this feeling a lot softer and I feel really good in my body right now after our conversation today. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, that's wonderful to hear. I'm so glad to offer that a presence of relief and reassurance and some resonance where you can feel like you're not alone. Some of the things you've been feeling. So all of my love to you, and I'm always here for and with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Quantum Crossroads. I hope you loved our deep dive and found some inspiration in our chat. If today's episode sparked new ideas or challenged your perspective, share it with your crew and spread the love. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help others find our podcast and join this journey. Your support means everything. Stay connected with us on Instagram at Katie Dickieson and visit katiedickieson.com for more insights, resources, and to join our incredible community. Remember, the crossroads are where we grow, evolve, and become our true selves. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and always remember who the fuck you are. Stay real, stay true, and stay inspired.